The International Olympic Committee has the honour of announcing that the Games of the 30th Olympiad in 2012 are awarded to the City of London.
In July 2005, London was awarded the 2012 Summer Olympics. Over a decade later, one legacy of that marvellous summer is the Olympic Stadium in Stratford, which recently and somewhat controversially became the new home of Premier League football team West Ham United. During the making of this documentary, West Ham's old home, Upton Park, was slowly and eventually demolished. But just as Upton Park's famous 100-year history was coming to an end, an uncelebrated amateur football team called Upton Park FC, with Olympic connections of its own, was emerging from a 106-year slumber. This is their incredible story. On the 10th of May 2016, West Ham United played their last ever game at Upton Park, or the Bowling Ground as it's otherwise known. Built in 1904, this had been their home for over 100 years. During this emotional final game, perennial underdogs West Ham did a very un-West Ham thing by beating global footballing powerhouse Manchester United by a score of 3-2. It was the perfect romantic send-off. The game will forever be etched into the memories of West Ham fans. And the scorer of the last ever goal at Upton Park is now a part of pub trivia folklore. So who did score the final goal at the Bowling? The acceptable answer in most pub quizzes is Winston Reid. However, the correct answer is Lance Corporal Liam Meldrum of the Royal Engineers. And this is where our story begins. What many people don't know is that the last actual game played on the Bowling's hallowed turf took place a few weeks later, on the 30th of May, between two amateur sides, Upton Park FC and the Royal Engineers. But who the hell are Upton Park FC? In order to find out more, I caught up with Peter Hammersley, an East London historian who now resides in Perth, Australia, hence the crackly phone line.
The club was formed in 1866. And it was the first club in County Borough of West Ham, which is roughly Newham, London Borough of Newham now. And they played in West Ham Park. They were Victorian gentlemen footballers who played just for athleticism. What did they call it? Muscular Christianity.
Peter and I spoke for close to an hour, and by the end of our conversation, I was staggered by the depth of Upton Park FC's rich history. In 1871, they and 13 other teams entered the first ever FA Cup, and the inaugural goal of the tournament was scored against them at West Ham Park by the Clapham Rovers player Jarvis Kenrick. The side embarked on its first tour to the West Country and eventually the Channel Islands in September 1897. Their reputation grew and the side became a representative team, taking the best county level players to the Channel Islands, attracting huge crowds in the process and helping to grow the game there. To commemorate the 10th tour in 1906, a large handsome trophy was commissioned and given to the Guernsey Football Association. It was decided to contest the trophy each season between the champion civilian sides of Guernsey and rival island Jersey. The trophy rapidly became the most coveted prize in Channel Island football. The lasting legacy remains today, as the Upton Park Trophy is fought for each April and considered something of huge tradition. In addition to their role in FA Cup folklore, Peter also shared the unbelievable story of Upton Park FC and the 1900 Paris Olympics.
And then in 1900, they obviously reached their historic peak when they went to France, represented Great Britain in the Olympic Games, and are recognised as being the winners of the first Olympic football tournament.
How ridiculous that, Upton Park FC gold medal winners.
That's the voice of John Hunter, the Upton Park FC chairman. a warm and engaging man whose main goal is to develop youth football in an area of London that many feel has been abandoned since West Ham's recent departure. Back in February 2016, I called up with John and first team manager Billy Jenkins in the Queen's pub on Green Street.
I love the FA Cup, and I knew that a team called Upton Park FC had played in the first ever FA Cup, and I always wondered what it was all about. It was a story that needed to be told. I think that most people I'd spoken to didn't even know that Upton Park Football Club had ever existed.
I went into midfield, a bit Mickey Quinn-esque, got the ball out my feet like a hot potato. But
Meet Billy Jenkins, Upton Park FC's player manager and lifelong West Ham fan. His father and grandfather were both physiotherapists at West Ham, tending to the likes of Billy Bonds, Sir Trevor Brooking and the great Bobby Moore himself. He talked of his special memories from playing in the final game at the Boleyn.
My father being physio there from 1966 to 1990 and my grandfather there before him, something so historically intertwined with my family, and now living on Green Street right opposite the ground, knowing that it wouldn't be my neighbour for much longer, but being able to get onto the pitch, it was choking a little bit, but it was wonderful to take that memory, to treasure that. And a lovely other element of it being that my dad came along and he did a few bits in the dressing room before, and he was sat on the bench for the last game when he'd spent his whole life there, and my granddad, and the memories, well, they were strong. And he walked out there afterwards on his own, and we were upstairs and he just walked out, and I think he needed that little moment on his own, and that'd be the last time.
Like West Ham, Upton Park FC were also 3-2 winners at the Boleyn, and following their successful resurrection, John and Billy decided to honour the club's age-old tradition and return to the Channel Islands in June 2017.
I think when I've spoken with a few of the potentials to fill the squad for the game, they were like kid in a sweet shop. I mean, it's such a historic team when they find out and they do a bit of reading into the history of Upton Park FC, and a few of them, to go out and represent that, it means a lot to them. It means to them that they're actually representing a team from this area that preceded the likes of Thames Ironworks, West Ham United. They're happy. They're really happy, and they're very excited. So the trip to Guernsey and to play the Royal Engineers again, to play there at the stadium, National Stadium in Guernsey, is something that the players of this ilk and this level will be honoured to do. And myself, I can't wait. And I might even be able to get myself a cheeky 5 minutes on the pitch to play that Jan Mulby role again.
It's Thursday, June the 8th, and the team are en route to the Brompton Barracks, home of the Royal Engineers. Today, Upton Park FC renew their acquaintances with the side they beat 5 months ago at the Boleyn ground. The Engineers are one of the country's few sides with an even deeper history. Before kick-off, I grabbed a quick word with their Director of Football.
I'm Major Glenn Lishman and I'm the Director of Football for the Royal Engineers Football Club. FA Cup winners 1875, and prior to that finalists on a number of occasions. One thing that we do dine out on is the fact that we're one of only 2 clubs that have won the FA Cup and the FA Amateur Cup, the other team being Wimbledon.
Would you be interested to make this an annual fixture between the Engineers?
Absolutely, we'd love to. We play competitive football through the season for our military connections or through the military system, and to play any civilian team and club with a history that's similar to ourselves is always something we always look forward to.
After we scored the 2 goals, I think we sat in too deep. Their Achilles heel.
On an overcast and windy Thursday afternoon, Upton Park FC are 2 goals to the good at half-time, despite being overfed by their more than gracious hosts. As Billy prepared his team talk, I took the opportunity to talk to one of Upton Park FC's more famous representatives, Bertie Brayley.
It was lovely of Billy to invite me down to the last game at the Boleyn last year. It was special for me, to be fair, and sort of knowing it was going to be one of the last games, it was special to me, and I got a proper chance to say goodbye. I'm a devout West Ham fan anyway, so to grace it one last time, and with Upton Park FC and with a friend like Billy, is a real honour, so I can thank him for that.
Bertie played in the final game at the Boleyn for Upton Park FC, but more famously, He was a member of the 1999 West Ham side that clinched the FA Youth Cup by a staggering 9-goal margin, a time in his life he loves to reflect upon.
Oh, mate, I was with great players, and great coaches. Great time to be around the club, really. I went there as a 14-year-old from Aston Villa up until I was about 19, and it was probably the best days of my life. Really was good. You had Joe Cole and Michael Carrick, but it wasn't all about them. I think we were strong in every position. You had very good players in Adam Newton, Izzy Repkin, Terrell Forbes, all solid boys. In the midfield, Michael Frante. So we had a very solid side, but from 14 years old, we was all together and we was very strong then. It was a very good time to be there, and I was lucky to be with them sort of players.
The final whistle blows and Upton Park FC remain unbeaten, a stretch which now dates back to the 10th of March 1910. On a buoyant coach trip to Gatwick, I caught up with Billy to discuss player recruitment, team selection, and how he hopes Upton Park FC can restore some life to East London following West Ham's departure to Stratford.
Wouldn't it maybe be nice if there was Upton Park were playing, and a lot of the games were either midweek or when West Ham play away, for a few people to, if they wanted to, come and watch a good game of football and go into the old haunts again. Maybe go to the Bowling or the Queen's pub first, take the walk back down Green Street, just in the other direction, chuck a left in West Ham Park, go and watch a game, go back to the Queen's after, have a couple of pints. It's that little element of nostalgia which doing this would offer people that, just so they can have that little taste of where they were again, because a lot of people miss that. There's the balance of how you move it forward and whether these players would want to come and play for Upton Park week in, week out, or two games a week. I think you could take a few and then build something around that as what's very important, the local element, the local players, that area's players. So maybe you could use it as a start, as a springboard, but the idea is to build around a few nucleus players here and then get some local players to join, and then maybe it becomes more of a local project.
June the 9th, the morning after the night before, and some blurry heads are emerging at reception of the Gatwick Hilton ahead of a very early flight to Guernsey. The odd man out of the touring party is Corporal Matt Kenny, a Royal Engineer. Matt caught his new teammates off guard as the team prepared to check out.
From behalf of Royal Engineers FC, guys, what I've got for you all, and from Major Glenn Lishman, is just our core badge for you guys to wear on your suit jackets for the weekend, if you don't mind. They're quite special. We don't just give them out. Usually you've got to play 5 games for our club before you receive one of these.
Gatwick is crowded, it's stifling hot, and the side are adorned in suits and matching Upton Park FC ties. In an effort to assimilate with the team, I too am decked out in a sweaty suit and tie of my own, and partook in last night's team building. Thankfully, it's a short flight. Whilst waiting for our flight to be called, I caught up with Corporal Matt Kenny to discuss his place on the tour and future potential fixtures between Upton Park FC and the Royal Engineers.
How did the selection process go, whereby you were the sole engineer? Did you draw straws, or...?
So we were, I'd say, selected from our squad. I'm not going to big myself up too much. There's a lot of people away that probably deserve to come here as well, that play at a higher level than just the Royal Engineers football team. But it ended up, due to work commitments, that Corporal Barker couldn't come, unfortunately, so that just ended up with myself here, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for you guys, but as I said, fantastic to be here, and I'm really, really proud that I'm representing the Royal Engineers to be here with you guys on this tour.
My name's Steve Rolson, Captain. My colleague up front today is Vicky Hedgeham. It's his pleasure to be flying you to Guernsey, so he'll get back to the cruise update to capture there, and of course our estimated time of arrival. With the weather in mind, it's actually quite a pleasant day for
Take off. As the players sleep, I took the opportunity to sit with club chairman John Hunter to discuss the team's progress thus far, the excitement of the side's first trip to Guernsey in over 120 years, and how the tour came about in the first place.
The chemistry you've developed with the engineers
since the game at the Boleyn last year. Talk us about how you came about selecting them as an opponent and how the relationship's developed.
About 18 months ago, I tried to phone every team that had played in the first FA Cup, and there's 14 teams, of which Upton Park FC were one of them. And I got some mixed receptions. I phoned the civil service. There's a team called Barnes, etc. But the one that I got the best reception from was the Royal Engineers.
Speaking of the team you're going to be playing, the Guernsey Football Association, strong teams expected to be fielded by those guys.
Well, I did speak to their representative, Gary Roberts, and he was explaining that they've got the Island Games in a couple of weeks' time, so they're using this game as a warm-up for that, and they're the holders of that current tournament with the Faroe Islands and a number of Bermuda, I think, play. So, part of that team they're going to be playing tonight. We've had words before, and we said, look, you play your strongest team, and we're gonna play our strongest team. It's going to be delightful. I think also for us to see how Guernsey is and Upton Park and how important the Upton Trophy is to celebrating all things Upton. I think the fact that it's their rivalry, isn't it? That's their derby. It's Jersey versus Guernsey. You can only but imagine what that's like, actually. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, playing at their national stadium. Fantastic.
Yeah, 6,000 capacity, I think, the most there on an island with a population of 60,000. So if you get a sellout, you've got a 10
So if you had that, if that was in the UK, you'd have 6 million in Wembley, wouldn't you?
Follow on there. This gentleman here will drive you down to the hotel.
Upon arrival, the side are recognised as Upton Park FC. Such is their significance to the Channel Islands. Our coach driver for the day is clearly more than aware of the team's history and stature.
Certainly in memory or in testament to the trophy your club kindly donated all those years ago. And we're looking forward to a good game tomorrow night, which I hope you'll play well, but not better than us.
Okay.
Our accommodation for the next 2 nights doesn't disappoint. The power of the ocean and its uniquely salty smell can be sensed from the Wayside Cheer Hotel. But more importantly, June's entertainment includes Peter White as Kenny Rogers and Gary Peace as Rod Stewart. It seems we've gone back in time into Heidi High territory, which, it transpires, is an ideal team building environment for an amateur football team. With the team's bags checked in, Billy took them off for a light training session. One of the club's senior players, Craig Lawrence, ran a number of the training session drills, and I caught up with him to discuss his role specifically within Upton Park FC.
My role now, so I'm not a teacher anymore, my role now is working for the Football Association, so I work within the PE unit. So, coaching or coach education's my job really, so I'm not saying I'm any good at it, but it's, I'm doing it day in, day out, and it was nice actually just to have a little bit of an input yesterday and do some fun practices with the lads. But as I said to John last year, I'd certainly be willing getting involved in some way, certainly in the future if he's looking to set up a youth department or youth teams within Upton Park FC. But it's certainly something in the future I'll be interested in.
I sat poolside and spoke with first team player Ollie Hewitt about his newfound celebrity status on the island, and to gauge his thoughts ahead of the big game with local professional outfit Guernsey FC.
We were walking along the beach this morning and talked to a few people, and they were kind of like a bit of an attraction, to be honest, which is quite nice, I suppose. But yeah, when we say that we played for Upton Park, like they know about it. I think there's been some stuff in the press over here. Obviously, small island. I think the football club is quite a big part of that. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of interest, and hopefully we'll get a good turnout tonight and have a good game.
At the end of a long day's travel, the team found a second wind as the evening's hotel karaoke kicked off. With the big game less than 24 hours away, Upton Park enjoyed entertainment worthy of Brian Potter's Phoenix Club. The team arrives at Foots Lane Stadium. It's match day. For many, the 10th of June has long been earmarked for the World Cup qualifier between Scotland and England. But for our touring party, it's all about Upton Park FC's first fixture on the soils of the Channel Islands for over 100 years. How are you feeling?
Very good. With an hour and a half to go, I think all the boys are sort of just locking into the pre-match zone. We're going to head down to the dressing room in about 30 minutes time to give ourselves an hour before kick-off.
Is the plan to sort of set up for the first 10 minutes, kind of work out what you're up against and then make changes on the fly?
Yeah, and you've got to be malleable to the opposition. You've got to try and find their weak points and exploit them.
And if you were to ask a stranger now to see the team,
I
you think they've played together for years?
Yeah, I think that's overridingly the most important thing. Before you even go in and start reading tactics of people, it's like teaching a granny how to suck eggs sometimes. All these boys have played football before. The important thing is bonding. So, the trips down to the seaside, round the pool, lunch together, a little bit of dancing last night, even a couple of beers together yesterday. That's not a bad thing. It's actually a bonding thing. Them getting to know one another and them getting an affiliation and affection for one another. You do that fills a lot of the jigsaw pieces on a game before you started.
As Billy disappeared to talk to BBC Guernsey, I was fortunate enough to talk with the home side's manager, Steve Sharman. How many of your players are aware of the history of Upton Park FC?
My communication to them is incredibly important, so they understand the context of the game. For some of the 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, their sort of time frame is yesterday and tomorrow, whereas some of the others, are more interested in the history, like I am and like yourself are. Yeah, it's a mix.
It's obviously a lovely place for teams to come, and you mentioned earlier that you'd like to welcome the team back on an annual basis if it's possible.
Oh, absolutely, and I think this is the first step to starting something that should be annual and re-establishing links. I think there's lots of opportunity. Yeah, we would very much welcome Upton Park to come back over and find the level that is right for both of us, and it can be at any time in the season, really. And there's no reason why we can't have a group that comes over to England and we can play over there as well. So yeah, of course.
Jed Bradley, Alex Robinson, Craig Lawrence, and Tom Kelly.
The teams are called out, and the momentous game is upon us. Can Upton Park extend their winning streak, or will the local professional Guernsey side prove too much for them?
Charlton Govan, Ryan Zico Black.
Within moments, it becomes evident that this is not a friendly fixture, and a physical first half ends 0-0. It's time for Billy to rouse his troops.
25 minutes, halfway then. Heads held high, because you've got a good opposition in front of you. And I think you've all played very well. We've defended really well. Like towards the end there, Matty Rutherford coming back there, putting him under pressure. Absolutely. That was excellent. But we can't put ourselves in that position, because you give them 4 chances and we've backed in and defended brilliantly, but we gifted them then. Let's go on that last line. Okay, they thought before they didn't know about us, did they? They weren't thought this might be a walk in the park. Let's go in there on that back line, Kelvin, on that back line. Can I start from them up out? Okay. Across the park in roles, I think it's been absolutely commendable. The back line, me superb. Okay, seriously, the 2 in front, opening up, producing for other people. 25 minutes now.
With the manager's words still ringing in their ears, the visitors take the lead early in the second half, as Craig Lawrence capitalises on some excellent work from midfield dynamo Alex Robinson.
What a challenge!
Oh, great tackle!
Go on, Robbo. Go on, go on! Go on! Yeah!
Yeah! The final whistle sounds, and it's Upton Park who are victorious. The sides embrace as Steve Sharman and John Hunter share their gratitude for what has been a highly competitive and extremely historic game of football.
Thank you very much. We thank you for providing us with a great game, physical, and it's competitive. Absolutely what we wanted. So thank you very much. We hope you've enjoyed your time on Guernsey. We hope it will become annual. We really do hope it will become annual. And obviously the thing is, everything on the pitch for 90 minutes, it's like war. Absolutely like war, and the way it should be. When we come off, that's it. It's all over. And then we just get on with stuff.
I'd like to echo that. We're in the process of trying to reform this club. Since West Ham United have moved to the Olympic Stadium, there could be a void left there, and as an amateur side down there, we're looking to revive it, and what better place to do that than to come where it was the home of the tours. So just in recognition of that, I've got a gift I'd like to give you. I think it's quite special. It's a bell. This bell comes from the Whitechapel Bell Shop, which closed this week. It's famous for making many bells such as Big Ben. So we give this to you from the East End of London and say thank you very much.
Post-game beers are consumed, and the team are taken off to St Peter Port to celebrate a hard-fought victory.
So it seems like yesterday, but it's been about 6 weeks since I was last in the company of Billy Jenkins and John Hunter. We moved on from the tour, we're now into July. What's happened in the time since the tour? What's going on in the world of Upton Park FC?
Yeah, we've got a few things. We did talk, didn't we, right at the very end of that trip, about what we'd like to do next season for playing some high quality rep games, you know, sort of Corinthian casuals equivalent for Essex, for Upton Park FC for this season. Certainly one that's in the diary is November the 5th. We'll be playing Clapham Rovers at West Ham Park, and I think that will create a bit of interest because it's also the first round of the FA Cup.
You were saying how the main intention was to develop a youth side in East London. Is that still the thought behind the club?
Yeah, I think so. That's always been the thing, is that it doesn't mean very much unless there's football back in that area. If it's just a rep team and that's it, then that lacks a bit of substance. What interest could we get, and could we really get an under 13 and under 14 team of really top quality standard playing at the very best level for that age group, all playing at West Ham Park? That would be the idea.
What are the kind of potential names that you're looking at to try and get involved at this stage?
We're not as well connected as others, but I think it's got to be someone that the kids would look up to. If it's someone that they don't know, I'm not sure that the appeal will be. It'd be like playing for any other club. Just to raise the profile, why not have, you know, what's Joe Cole doing on a Tuesday afternoon? Don't know. He's obviously got his own professional career to do, but there might be a number of players that aren't directly affiliated with West Ham, but have a love for the area that might want to give something back.
Because I live there. I was running around the park this morning, and you see a lot of games that kids got on themselves. You know, and they want to play a bit of football, but maybe go and put a good coach down there, or someone they respect, or someone who's maybe been at West Ham at some point, or maybe someone who does a bit of good coaching, and go and give them that bit of coaching, go and give them that bit of encouragement. It's giving them the confidence to go and do something else in life, and just give them a bit of structure where there's structure not quite there.
With a fixture locked in against Clapham Rovers to celebrate the FA Cup's first ever goal, John has also recently received an invite from the Guernsey Football Association. They're requesting that an Upton Park rep side return to Footslade Stadium in May 2017.
They have their Upton Park start their FA Cup final of the Channel. So on that day, they've asked us to come out and play a rep side of theirs either before or after that match on the same pitch. We've got lots of options, and in fact the Royal Engineers have invited us down. They have a very special day on the FA Cup final day in commemoration. They have their big dinner where everyone turns up, and they have one marquee game they've asked to play that as well. So in a short period of time we're getting a few offers to play some very nice football matches.
Just as a team called West Ham have recently left Upton Park, another side called Upton Park are soon returning to West Ham Park. The two sides' histories and names, it seems, are interwoven. And football at all levels is alive and thriving in the heart of London's East End.